Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be doing the advice generator application from Frontend Mentor. And what I want to do is I want to do two videos. So the first one is going to be a vanilla HTML, CSS and JavaScript where we're going to build this out, and then the other video is going to be the same application but now built in React. Okay, so what I've done actually is I have the vanilla version of this on GitHub already, and I'm going to have this link in the description as well. The repository is called Vanilla Advice Generator App, and you can go ahead and clone this and you'll find the application working correctly. You can just open up the index.html file however you wish. So you can go ahead and click on this card and then you can download the files right here, but I'm not going to download it because I already have the files on my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up using VS Code and then we can begin. Okay, so once you extract the files from the zip file that you download, then you should have something like this in your text editor. My preference is Visual Studio Code, but you can work with any text editor that you wish. And you can go ahead and take a look at the index.html. This is what we have, and so on and so forth. And we have the git ignore, we have the images and the design. So actually what I'm going to do is right inside here, I want to create a style.css file, or let me call it styles.css. You know what, let me call it style.css because that's what I call it in the repository, just to be uniform. And then I'm going to cut these two from here, cut it out, paste them inside here, and then I'm going to go ahead and link my style.css file, style.css. okay, we can remove this, and we can have this is actually fine, but you can change this to your website or whatever you want. Okay, and then as you can see, it says the advice goes here and the advice text goes here. Now I'm going to open this image. Let me see if this image is going to open here. I don't know why it does this these days, but it doesn't. Okay, there we go. So we have this so the advice title is going to be this, and then the text for the advice is this. This is the an image, and there's another image that we're going to make into a button. Okay, so right inside here, what I want to do is actually should go ahead and install an extension called 5server, which just allows for hot reloading. And let me just see, actually here it is. So live server, basically renamed to 5server. Okay, and you can go ahead and right click on this and say open with 5server, and it should open this up on localhost 5555. Okay, as that opens up, what I want to do is I want to create a div here with a class of container, and of course it doesn't work when I'm recording. What's happening? Div. Okay, so like I said, it opens up on localhost 5555. So let's just give this a class of container, like so. And then inside here we're going to have an h1 that says advice number, so basically this, right? And then below this, we're going to have a paragraph that says this. And of course, we're going to remove the comments, so don't worry about it. And then we have the attribution at the bottom, so that's looking okay. And then below this paragraph, look at the design. We have this image, right? We have this image first of all. So let's go ahead and add that image. And that image is called the pattern divider mobile and the desktop. Okay, so just because I don't want to toggle this in CSS, I'm going to add it in HTML using the picture tag. Okay, so the picture has the source media, and for a min width of 760 pixels. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this in a moment. We want the /images, and it's called pattern divider desktop.svg. And then we have the image, the source for this images, pattern divider mobile, like so. So what this does basically is it's going to check whether the window, all right, so the size of your window, whether it is greater than 760 pixels, and if it is, then this is the image it's going to show. And then if it is less than 760 pixels, then this is the image it's going to show. And remember that when you're using the picture tag, then you must always have this, because this is the default image. This is going to be the fallback. So this is basically more of like it advances the responsiveness of your website. So this is actually very nice to know about. Okay, if you want to be a bit cheeky, what you can do is you can toggle these images in CSS using media queries. Okay, so but I don't want to do that because it introduces a bit of overhead, which I do not want to deal with. And then once we have our this image, then we can add this one at the bottom. Okay, so let's have this as a div, and then inside it we're going to have a button that goes to /images/icon dice, like so. And we can save this, and let's preview what we have, and look at that, looking horrible, but that's looking okay. So let's go ahead and let's begin to style this out. Okay, and actually I've forgotten something. Let me create an app.js file inside here. So app.js file, which is basically going to be where we fetch our data. And then once we have our app.js, then I want to link this app.js just before the closing body tag. So script source app.js. Now, I know someone is going to mention this, so let me mention it first. You can link this below. You can link this just before the closing body tag, or you can have it inside your head tag. Okay, but the reason why I don't want to have it inside my head tag is because I usually forget to cut it out and have it inside here. It would still work, okay, but the thing is, the script is going to load fast before the HTML, and that just reduces the loading time. That just increases the loading time, sorry. So you can go around this by having the defer attribute, which just means that load the script file after everything else in the HTML has been loaded. The reason why I don't like doing this up here is because I always forget to do this. Okay, so it's just a matter of preference, and I like it at the bottom. That just means that everything inside the HTML is going to be passed from top to bottom, and I don't have to worry about the script file interfering with the loading times. Okay, so I can save this, and we can begin working on the style.css. So the first thing that I want to do actually is go into the style guide, and then we can grab our fonts and colors. So let me copy this, and then let's open this link like so. Should be right there. Okay, let's remove the styles, and then let's go ahead into our style.css. Let's paste in this. So let's create a colon root, and then we can have our primary colors right here. So this is called light cyan. Let's rename this. So -- light cyan. This is -- neon green. Okay, this is grayish blue. -- grayish blue, and this is dark grayish blue. So dark grayish blue. Okay, and then inside here, let's have our image. Let's say all the images should have a max width of 100%. Let's say that the body should have a font family of manrope, which we are going to get with a fallback of sans serif, like so. Let's have the font size as 16 pixels as the default, and then let's have the background color for this as dark grayish blue, like so. And then let's access the container, and then let's say that the container should have a background color of grayish blue. Okay, and by the way, if it doesn't give you suggestions like this, what you can say is Control and spacebar, and then it will give you a drop down. Okay, and you can just select it so that you don't have to keep on typing this out all the time. Okay, so the container has a background color of this. Let's add a padding of the container of 1.25 rem to push everything inwards, and you're going to see how this is going to work. And then on the body, let's have a padding of 1.25 rem as well. And actually, you know what, I'm going to explain this because it's a bit hard if you don't see what's happening, right? So let's save this, and then let's go ahead and grab this. We're grabbing the 800 font weight. So let's go ahead and grab the extra bold 800 here. Okay, and let's grab the import, copy this, and inside here right at the top, we are going to place this right there. Okay, fantastic. So let's save this, and let's see whether the font changes, and as you can see, it changes as well. Now let me just explain what we were doing in our CSS, right? Let me remove this padding. Let me remove this padding. Now look at this, and actually not, I've just realized that I haven't reset everything. So let's go ahead and reset the margin to 0. Look at this. Okay, set the padding to 0. Look at that. And then let's set the box sizing to border box. Okay, the reason why this is important is because there are some elements that have a default margin and a default padding. So if you don't add them in, if you don't reset this, sorry, and you try to add the margin and padding on the elements, then you'll find that they are going to start overflowing and behaving in a manner that you don't expect. And then the box sizing border box just tells the document that we are going to be using the CSS box model. okay, which just means that place the margin on the outside and then place the padding on the inside of the elements. Okay, so if I add the padding here, notice how this container, our container is this light one. Notice how it's going to push inwards just a bit, okay, so that it doesn't push all the way to the edges, especially on mobile screens. And then on the container, once I have the padding here, then it's also going to push the text and the content inside the container inwards, okay. So that's looking fantastic. And let me check something. Yeah, the body, so the quote has a font size of 28 pixels. So let's add that inside here by saying the paragraph has a font size of 28 pixels. I don't know what 28 pixels is in rem, so I'm just going to use this. But then remember that using pixels is slowly being phased out, if I can use that term. And then let's have a line height of 1.5. Okay, and just to show you what this is, let me go inside the index.html and then let's remove this, and then let's just say lorem 10 because it doesn't work. So lorem 10 like so, and this is emmet, but then I'm using emmet, that's why I'm able to generate this random text. Okay, so if I say lorem 100, then it's going to generate 100 words. Okay, so we just need 10 of them, so let's have that. Okay, and look at this. Okay, so if I remove the line height, then it's going to be squeezed just a bit, and if I add it in, and so on and so forth. Okay, now what should we do? The text is aligned to the center, so let's say text aligned center like so, and then let's begin to style the h1. So we have an h1, and you might be wondering, look at this, we have the design right here. I have this as the h1, but it looks small, right? But it is advisable that every single page should have an h1 just to tell what the page is about, and should only have one single h1 per page. Okay, so always remember that. So let's have the container h1. Let's say the color for this is neon green. Let's say the text transform to uppercase. Let's have the letter spacing to 4rem. Sorry, not 4rem. 1 rem is 16 pixels. So let's say 0.5 rem. I'm going to have that. Let's say font size 0.6 to 5 rem. Make it smaller. 0.65 rem I think is 10 pixels if my estimates are correct. And then let's reduce it to 0.4 like so, and then margin bottom, let's say 1 rem, push it downwards. Okay, and then we can go ahead and grab the container paragraph. We can say padding bottom, not padding bottom, sorry, but margin bottom to 1 rem as well, pushed away from this, and let's say 2 rem probably. Okay, and then we need the container paragraph as well. Actually, we're already there, so let's change this to light cyan, no, light gray. What was the color? Okay, light cyan. Okay, light cyan. Okay, fantastic. And then we can go ahead and target this picture. So the container picture, let's say margin bottom of 1 rem as well. And am I in the wrong one? Container picture img probably. Okay, there we go. And the container has a border radius around it, so let's add a border radius of 1 rem, which is 16 pixels, and that's looking fantastic. And then let's go inside the attribution right here. Let's just say margin top of 1 rem. Okay, and then change the color for this, change the color to light cyan to change this text, and then this can remain as it is. Probably let's just make it a bit lighter, right on there. Okay, fantastic. And just to make it a bit nicer in terms of user experience, we can add a hover state for this, where we can change the color from this light blue to just a bit darker, right around there. And then we can add a transition, so we can transition the color by 0.3 seconds, and we can just say easy out. So just like that. Okay, that's a bit dark. There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's move this container to the center. Okay, because it's positioned to the center by default. So that's easy enough to do. We can just go to the body and we can add the display flex. and align item center and justify content to the center, and then let's add a flex direction of column so that it is aligned in column form. If I remove this, then notice how it looks, okay, because there are technically two elements in the body. Okay, there are only two elements in the body, the first one being the container and the second one being this attribution div. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's add this back in like so. And then in order to move this to the center using flexbox, then we need to add a fixed height. So I'm going to add a height of, actually, you know what, I can just say 100 viewport heights, but technically I don't want to do this because if the content is going to be resized in the container, then this is going to be a bit of a bad UX for mobile. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to add a function called calculate. Okay, and I'm going to say calculate 100 viewport heights minus 0.1 pixels, and this is just going to return the height in pixels, and this is CALC. So calculate, and it's going to be technically almost the same because 0.1 is negligible enough that you can't really see its effect. Okay, and then once we do this, then let's tag this button, this image, sorry. And this image, actually, I want it to be a button because we're going to be clicking on it in order to generate random pieces of advice. So let's cut this out and let's add a button here, just like that. And then let's begin to style it out. So the container button, I just want to go right here. So container button, and I'm going to say the background color is going to be the neon green. Look at that. Okay, and this has a border. I don't know whether you can see it, but I can add a padding of 1.25 rem all around, and now you can see the border, right? So you don't want that border. You can remove that border by saying border none, and then it is rounded, so we can add a border radius of 50% to make it rounded like so. And then let's have transition all the elements. You know what, I just want to change the background color, right? So transition the background color by 0.3 seconds, and then let's say easy in out as well. And then let's add the hover state for this. So copy this. Let's say for the hover state, then we just want the background color to be this color, but just a bit darker. So right around here probably. Let's see how this looks. Look at that. Okay, and then let's have cursor pointer. So cursor pointer. There we go. So now when we click on this button, then we need to generate random pieces of advice from this. Okay, and this button isn't really placed here, it's placed right around here, right? So let's go ahead and do that by saying position absolute. And I'm doing this on purpose. Probably you already know that this is going to be a bit of a mistake technically, but you won't really see it until I explain it. So position absolute, and then let's say position this to the left by 50%. Okay, and then let's say, notice how it's a bit to the right, we want to move it back to the center, right? So let's say transform, and we're going to say translate on the x-axis by minus 50%. Now it's perfectly positioned to the center. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to add the bottom padding on this container so that it's just a bit so this button just moves just a bit on top, right? Let's go into here and let's say 1.25 rem on the top and 1.25 rem on the left and right, and then let's say 3 rem on the bottom, just like that. Or you know, let's just say 2 rem. Okay, and that's, you know, that's looking actually okay, but I want now this to move a bit further down, right? So where did I add the margin bottom for the attribution? Margin top here. So let's just say margin top of 3 rem. Okay, and we already have that, and that's looking okay, right? Let's just say 4 rem just to add a bit more space. And then what we can do is, what did I want to do? What do I want to do? The next thing that we need to style is actually this, right? So that it looks like this. Okay, and for that I'm going to grab the code from my repository because it was a bit hard to figure out and it involved a lot of trial and error. So what I'm going to do is right inside here, I'm going to go inside my style.css. Okay, that's why I'm going to link this in the description, and then I'm going to grab this. Notice how we have the before and after. So right up to here, I'm going to grab, copy this, and then I'm going to paste it where they have it after the paragraph. So right here, and hopefully, okay, And I probably should remove this here, and I should add it here. Margin bottom 1 rem. Hopefully this will work and it doesn't give me errors. And of course it gives me errors. And I actually know the reason why that's an error. Okay, so let me just comment this out and let me explain. Okay, so notice how this button is positioned absolute here, right? It's positioned absolute to the body technically. Now, if I add another property called top and set it to the top by 10 pixels, notice what happens. Now it goes all the way to the top instead of being contained within the container. Now, in order to fix that, then we need to go into the parent element of the button, which we know is the container. So let's go into the container right here, and then let's say position this as relative. And when I save this, now notice the button goes here instead of being on the top. Okay, so we don't want it to be on the top. Actually, we want it to be on the bottom, so we can remove this. And we're going to have that. Now, if I uncomment this, then it should work. Look at that, looking fantastic, right? And the reason why it worked is because now I think this one is positioned absolute. That's how I did it, okay? I positioned this one as absolute, and then this one is positioned as a relative. So I want this to move upwards just a bit. So this should be the after block. I want it to the bottom by, notice how I did a lot of trial and error here, okay? That's why these widths are a bit off. You can tell just from doing this. And if you have a better suggestion for this, then go ahead and do that, okay? You don't have to follow everything that I'm doing. It's okay to have, you know, your own solutions. So let's test 1 rem, let's say 2 rem, let's say to 1.5 rem, 1.6 rem, 1.7. There we go. Notice how it's a lot of trial and error, you know, and that's why I'm saying that if you have a better solution, please go ahead and do that. Okay, so once we have that, then I guess we are done with everything inside the HTML and CSS. Okay, you know what, I've realized that we are not, because we need to contain this. So let's add a media query right below this. We can say at media for a min width of 500 pixels. Then I want to access the dot container, and I want the container to have a max width of 480 pixels. Now 480, I've chosen it because technically the body has a padding of 20 pixels all around. Where is it? This 20 pixels all around. Okay, that's why I chose 480. So once you save that, then look at this. We have this looking fantastic. Okay, so I can place it to the right, and we're going to have that. Now let's go ahead and deal with our button here, because when we click on this, then we want the quote to change. Okay, so we can go ahead into our app.js, and we can say we want to fetch our advice. And actually, what was the API? The API is called this one. So the advice slip API, and right here. Okay, so this is the response that we're going to be getting back. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this link, and then inside here I'm going to say let's create a function called fetch advice, right? And this is going to be an asynchronous function, because I like asynchronous functions, like so. Oops. Where I'm going to say const res equals to await fetch, and we're going to be fetching this URL. And then we're going to say const data equals to await res.json. Okay, and just to see what we have, I'm just going to say console.log the data, and then let's remember to call this function fetch advice. Okay, and let's go ahead back into our application, which is right here, and let's open up our console, and we should see this. Look at this. So we get back an object, and we have the slip and the advice. So that's looking okay. That's looking okay. And what we can do next is we can go ahead and grab this h1 and this paragraph, because we need to populate them, right? So let me give this let me give it an ID. I know I used classes in my repository, so let me give this an ID of title, and then let's give this paragraph an ID of text. Okay, so right after this console log, I want to grab the title, the h1, and the paragraph. So I'm going to say document dot get element by ID, and I want the title like so, and I'm going to say dot inner HTML equals to and it's going to be equals to data.slip.id. Let's see that. Look at that. So we have ID number 62, right? Because we are accessing the slip from here, and then we're getting the ID property and we're displaying it here. And then what I can do is document.get element by ID, and we want the ID of text, and you can say .inner HTML equals to data.slip.advice, which is the next one. And would you look at that? So this is already working pretty much, right? But technically we don't want to have that. So what I want to do is I want this to be in quotes like this. Okay, I want it to be in quotes, and then we can get this and then display it on the screen, because if I save this, then it's just going to write this on the screen, and I don't want that to happen. And before I forget, let me remove this text because we don't need it anymore. Okay, and then adverse ID, we can remove this. Okay, and let me just remove all of this because technically still we don't need any of that. Okay, now we can go ahead and inside here, instead of just returning the variable, then I'm going to be return template literals, okay, backticks, and I'm going to say advice number, so hashtag, and then placing my $, like so, and then we can say data.slip.id. Okay, and we're going to have this. Okay, so advice number 5, and then we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so I'm going to return my template literals and say we're going to have $data.slip.advice. Okay, and we need to add quotes on the left and right, so that's why I have this right here, because this works, because technically we are accessing the variables, and we can do that because of ES6 we are using template literals. Okay, so would you look at that? That's looking fantastic. And then now we just need to handle our button click, right? So remember the function is called fetch advice, so you can go back into our index.html, and on this button right here we can say, when we click on this, so on click we can say fetch advice, which is the name of our function. Okay, so look at that. When you click on this, another function and another function, and looking another quote, sorry, not function, another quote. Okay, now I just want to explain something that, notice if you try and click fast enough, then it technically doesn't change. That's because in the API documentation, which is right here, it says advice is cached for 2 seconds, so any repeat request within 2 seconds will return the same piece of advice. That's why this happens. Okay, it's not that your application is broken or anything, but it's because of the caching that is happening. Okay, so that's looking fantastic. And so what I want to do is, actually not, I've already deployed this on GitHub, so there's nothing more to do, and I already have it on Netlify as well, so everything is looking fantastic. So in the next video, and what I can do actually is I can submit this to Frontend Mentor, right? So let's go ahead and let me just open Netlify because I've forgotten the link to that website. Okay, so this is a link to my website, right? The one that I deployed. So let me go ahead and go into Frontend Mentor, and let's say visit Challenge Hub, and then let's say submit solution because I already done it. Is that the correct one? Okay, so submit solution, and we have, let's say, mobile fast advice generator app in vanilla, come on, vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript. There we go. So the repository URL, we have the live site URL, so let me get the repository URL from here, right here, and then we don't need to add this, and we can just say submit solution. Okay, and would you look at that, we're already done with that. Now in the next video I want to build out this same application, but now in React, and it's going to be faster because I'm just going to copy the CSS that we have from this application that we've just built. I'm just going to copy out this CSS, and then everything should be fine. Okay, so thank you for watching the video, and if you're not subscribed, then please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.